All right, let's pick up where we left off yesterday. Becoming more competitive in the markets. What could cause you to become more or less competitive? Well, we used to make a lot of products here that were in the furniture industry and, of course, the textile industry. However, our location to forest and our location to the cotton fields and stuff of the South made this area a prime area in which to make those products. However, in recent years, as farmers have stopped growing cotton and other textiles, it has caused the factories that were here to have to import the raw materials from further and further away, causing the price of the product to continue to go up, up, and up. Also, competition from other labor markets around the world, especially Asia, has caused many of these businesses that used to thrive here in the Carolinas to move their production to other countries because, frankly, it was less profitable here in this location than it used to be. Location at one time was a benefit to us, and now is not as much a benefit as it is elsewhere. So we have seen those businesses move because of that. Government regulations of a product. Tobacco is a good one to look at this. Used to be tobacco was a hugely profitable industry, especially here in this part of North Carolina. Everybody grew tobacco, and of course you had Winston-Salem, Philip Morris, all of the big manufacturers of tobacco products right here located in the Piedmont. And it was, frankly, if you wanted to make a lot of money, you grew tobacco or you worked for the tobacco company. That being said, because of the evidence of health issues and regulations by the government and child safety and basically, smoking is bad, has caused that industry to basically collapse in the last 40 years. When I was a kid growing up, all my heroes and all the men I knew smoked. And it was just sort of something, I mean, every movie you watched, the hero was always smoking a cigarette. And, today, the idea of someone smoking on screen is just unheard of. Matter of fact, anybody that does smoke is often pressured into quitting, or they won't film it on movies or TV anymore because it's such a bad habit. And because of that, that government regulation and public opinion has moved that what used to be a major industry here in this area of North Carolina almost out of existence. The uniqueness of a product. You can make a product that is so unique that once it no longer has a cool factor, it can become much, much less competitive, such as cigarettes. However, the uniqueness of a product, the fact that you can only make it in a certain place or grow it in a certain place, that kind of thing, can also make a product very competitive or very marketable. So if we can just figure out what the next unique product that we make here in North Carolina is and tap into that, then we can get back to making money again. So we've got to find those. Profit incentives. I love profit incentives. This is where the ultimate goal of a business obviously is to make money. So how do you inspire your employees to help you make money? Well, one of the cool things that have come up in recent years is profit incentives. If you end up owning your own business, may I suggest profit incentives? It is an excellent way to motivate your employees. Basically, what you're doing is you are making your employees a very, very small part, but a actual part owner into your company. In other words, you let them know that you're giving them 0.1111% of the company. And when you do your profits at the end of the quarter or at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you figure up what that 0.111% is and you give that employee a check. for their share of the profit. What it does is it gives the employee the idea that they are part ownership of the company. In other words, they have a vested interest in the company. If you, some companies that do this, one of my favorites is Lowe's Hardware, Lowe's Home Improvement. If you work there for 5 years and get onto full-time status, you will start receiving profit incentives. You will get shares in the company. Now, these shares, you own a microscopic part of the company, and that is a huge company. So a microscopic part, don't think that that's microscopic money. A single share of profit from them could be hundreds of dollars every quarter. So every 3 months, you'll get a profit share check where you will receive a check from the profits that you have helped make that company in the last 3 months. So every 3 months, you share in the profits. So the better the company does, the better you do. The more money the company makes, the more money you make. So right now, with everybody stuck at home during this time of COVID-19, a lot of people like myself are using this time as an opportunity to do small home improvements. You may have large job sites closed down because of COVID-19, but I think that there's a good chance that the company is doing just fine because people are at home right now, fixing up their kitchen or redoing their bathroom or painting their house or fixing up their yard. These type of projects, since we have all this time on our hands stuck at home. That being said, would not be surprised that the employees who are working at Lowe's Home Improvement right now will get a fairly nice incentive check when it comes out next time. So, they're helping make the company more money. So by giving your employees some interest in the company, that means they're part owner. The idea here is are you going to let someone steal from your company? If you're a part owner and you work for the company and you see someone stealing or someone who works there not doing their job, are you going to let them do that when you consider the fact that they are stealing from you? It may be only pennies they're stealing from you, but still, that's your money. This is your business. So making your employees feel a part of your company is huge. It's a great way to motivate them. People generally become more efficient. They recognize, hey, the company does better, I do better. They concentrate on overall profits, making sure that the workplace is a place in which can make them more money. They show more professionalism in the workplace because they want the company to do well, and they're generally overall they're happier to work for that company. Why? Because it's not just a company they work for. It's a company in which they also, in a very, very small way, partly own. So it's not just working for the company. They also are part of the owners. So, that's kind of cool, at least wise on the surface. So think about profit share. If you guys open up your own businesses, profit share is an excellent way to, show your employees that you care about them and give them an invested interest in the company doing well. Investments in capital and human resources. These two things are not exactly separated. When you think of investment in capital and human resources, capital is investing into the physical body of the company or into the money of the company. Human resources is human capital. That is, your employees themselves are valuable. And having an invaluable employee is very, very important. I used to work in construction, and I spent a lot of time teaching our employees how to do things when it comes to wiring or whatever, or whether it was teaching them how to weld or how to use the equipment that we were doing. Those are skills in which the average person does not have. So by teaching them that, they are developing as an employee skills in which are helping my company make money. So, or if you hire someone with those skills already, it makes them more valuable. You pay them more money because of their skills, but at the same time, remember, they're making you more money because they have those skills. Now, there is a thing known as the law of diminishing returns. This is when no matter how much effort you put into a person, at some point in time, it comes a point where you have to ask yourself whether or not the amount of money or energy have you invested in that, does it no longer make you more money? I had an employee years ago that I really wanted to be happy at work, and every day I tried to find a new way to make them happy, but every single day they came to work and they basically said, "This place sucks and I don't want to be here." At a point, I finally looked at the employee and I told them that I wanted them to take a day off. I wanted them to take a day off. As a matter of fact, I offered them a week's pay to go away for a week and to decide whether or not they wanted to work for the company or not. If they didn't, I was giving them a week to find a new job. Why? Because at that point, I had reached the law of diminishing return. I was not willing to invest any more of my personal energy into that person in order to keep them as an employee. If they did not want to help or cooperate, at that point, I had reached a point where I was losing physical profitability because I was wasting so much energy every single day on them that it was better for me to give them a week's pay and hopefully shock them into a new level of, well, a new level of professionalism at the workplace, and of course profitability. Hopefully that they would step up their game, and I wouldn't have to constantly have to worry myself about trying to get them happy and make them happy. So at that point, I reached an emotional law of diminishing return, if nothing else. So it was worth it to me to give them that opportunity to find some other job. Also, let's say you're training someone and they're just not getting it. Or you have trained someone and you've put them out there, and no matter how many times you give them opportunities, they don't seem to just be able to click, or that particular idea is not panning out. Or maybe they just suck at it. I mean, they could be, you could have trained them to be a salesman and they just can't sell stuff. They're just not good at it. At some point, no matter how much energy or money or education or training you invest in that person, they're just not getting it. And at that point in time, it's time to cut loose. As my daddy would say, it's time to cut bait. So sometimes, you got to think about these things. There is a law of diminishing returns. No matter how much you throw at it, it ain't going to get any better. So, whether that be money or energy, or like my analogy was emotional, I was wasting a lot of energy and a lot of emotional credit resources in trying to work with someone who didn't want to work. And at that point, I had to let them go. I basically gave them the opportunity. I wished them well, but I told them I hope that they found a job that they did like. So a law of diminishing return may be something you either have to stop doing or quit. Division of labor. Division of labor is when you assign different parts of the manufacturing process to different people because they are more efficient. And this is in order to improve efficiency. Now, I was an extremely good welder, and I was really good at doing lots of things in construction. I'm an excellent person for finishing concrete. However, I've got bad knees, bad back, and I've gotten a little bit older. So when it comes to putting down concrete, there's a lot of sweat and a lot of back-breaking work that goes into actually pouring the concrete. That means putting it down on the ground. For me, it was a bad idea for me to be out there wheelbarrowing around wheelbarrow loads of concrete and dumping it and doing all the physical labor of putting the concrete down. It was better to do that, to assign that to younger people with better backs and with less skill. However, it was probably a better use of my abilities to have me out there actually doing the finishing. That's taking the trials and making it nice and smooth and pretty because I had those skills. So when I went to work on a job site, I divided up labor. Those who were younger with stronger backs and stuff, I put into the more physically demanding jobs. Those with skills and more talents and more experience, I put them into jobs in which I was trying to use them to the best of their talents and abilities. Sometimes that was physical abilities, sometimes that was just technique and skill, which are two different things. So a division of labor in order to make a product better or to make it more efficient. In other words, to get my biggest bang for the buck. Now, to make sure that I'm constantly doing this, I need to do cost-benefit analysis. This is where I look and determine the options that are provided before me, and I choose the ones that are going to make me the most amount of profits. And those things that I determine are not worth doing, I don't do. So, here's a good example. I can make a lot of money with the skills and talents that I have doing almost anything, but I don't mow my yard. I pay someone else to mow my yard. Why? Well, I'm old, and I got bad knees, bad back, and I can make a lot more money doing things with my brain than I can do with making by pushing a lawnmower around. So I pay someone younger to mow my yard. Why? Because I can make more money doing something else. So I don't do those things that they're not beneath me, but it's a waste of money. It's I can honestly make more money doing something else, and not only make money during that hour or 2 hours that it would take to mow and weed eat my yard, but I could pay someone else and still make money more than what it would cost for. Basically, I'm too expensive to do those things. So you have to think about whether or not uh, you have your employees in the right place doing the right things. And are there some things that you might want to outsource, like mowing the yard? At this point, I'm going to outsource concrete work. Why? Well, I don't want to do it. And there are people who are cheaper than me who can do it just as well, if not better, because they're younger and healthier. AKA, I don't do those things I don't want to do because they don't make good financial sense. Factories and businesses have to think this way too. Let's talk about ownerships of companies. Let's say you want to own a company and you want to understand the benefits of private ownership. Let's talk about the private ownership. Let's say you want to own your own business. I've always dreamed of owning my own restaurant. I even came up with a name, Big Daddy Fats, a burger joint. And I have this idea of the world's greatest burger. Oh, it is so good. It's a giant melt in your mouth patty cooked over a real charcoal grill with bacon on it, Carolina barbecue on it, cheese, barbecue sauce, and more cheese served with onion rings, crispy onion rings on a homemade bun. This thing is the size of a pie. And it'll kill any one person. But I will just say this, I bet people would eat it, and if it didn't kill them, they would come back for more. But anyway, what is the cool thing about owning your own company? Well, if I owned my own company, number one, control. I am in charge of all the decisions. I don't have to worry about someone or a shareholder or a boss or a supervisor interfering with me or holding up some kind of crazy expectation that can't be met. So I have complete decision control and the ability to affect the outcome based upon my own thoughts. The rights of non-disclosure. as a private owner and the person who owns a product, I don't have to disclose to anyone the details about how the operations are done, and also I don't have to let my competitors know how I'm doing it. Um, got some friends who own a race car team, and they spend a lot of times trying to figure out how to make their car go faster. Well, they own the company and they don't have to tell others the secrets that they are using to make their car faster than anybody else's, as long as they stay within the racing regulations and rules. So new designs and things like that are kept very hush hush, secret. Why? Because they can. It's their business, not someone else's. Confidentiality, you don't have to inform an executive branch or set up any legal statements, or sensitive information does not have to be made public unless you are a publicly controlled company. So if you are a private ownership, you don't have to announce to the world your personal emails or your sensitive information. It's your business. You don't have to tell them how much money you make or how much money you didn't make. It's none of their business. That is your business. You also get some special tax structure, some tax benefits. This allows you for more flexibility as a private owner. If you make a lot of money in a year, a lot of profit, you can actually turn around and take that money and invest it back into the company. In other words, build a better building, buy more sort of land, put a new roof on, improve the equipment or products that you have within the business. And because you did that with the profits, you don't have to pay taxes on them. So you just made a company make a lot of money. You didn't have to pay taxes on it because you invested it back into the company. And now you got new stuff to make even more money the next year. So a lot of times you can make a much more profitable business as a private owner. Liabilities. Public companies are more vulnerable to being sued in the real world. Now, I'm not saying that if you own your own company, you can't be sued. Yes, obviously, if you do something wrong or you cause somebody harm, you can be sued. However, those lawsuits have a lot more hurdles to jump through, a lot more rules and regulations. So you are a little bit more protected as a private owner from frivolous lawsuits. These are lawsuits that are ridiculous. You know, when somebody burns their mouth with a coffee cup at Starbucks and it says right on the lid, contents are hot, and then they sue the company because they didn't say, be careful, that coffee's hot. You know, that would be kind of crazy. If you're a publicly owned company, you might be sued. But if you are privately owned, they're probably going to throw that kind of case out. So you have some protection as a private owner against liability lawsuits. A private owner, you don't have to worry about the transfer of shares. Even if you owned a company where you had stockholders, in other words, partners, you can negotiate within those shareholders in order to transfer your ownership. Let's say I owned a company with my brother and I got old and was no longer interested in the company. I would be able to transfer ownership of that company, say, to my daughter or my nephew without too many issues. So transfers are easier and there's less legal restrictions. Okay. Issues over shares. There are some issues. If you have a privately held company, you cannot issue public shares. In other words, you can't just sell it to anybody. Um, but you can involve other people to help raise money. I will just say that if you sell publicly and you want to raise more money to build more factories or to build another office or another shop, you can divide shares or sell more shares in order to do those things. A privately held company, you are who is being um, asked for more money to improve it. Access to credit. Well, if you own your own private company, they're going to be looking at you, your life, the wealth of the shareholders. So let's say you went into business with your best friend and your best friend has bad credit. That could actually stop you from being able to borrow in order to build a new factory or to build a new office space or something. So be careful who you let into your private, who you become a partner with. Also recognize that if you have partners outside your family, especially, that if there's a death or a major stakeholder files bankruptcy personally or something, this could have a big blow on your company. So you need to make sure that not only you financially secure, but that the people that you're in business with are financially secure. So there is the negative part of this. You are the bank for this, and if you mess yourselves up, then you're not going to be able to do it. Risk of loss. Well, if you are a private owner and you lose your business, you can lose everything. It is very easy for you to lose the business and possibly other assets of the company or your personal assets. A lot of that stuff gets tied in together, so you have to recognize that if you are a privately held company, yes, you have the rights to make all the decisions, but if those decisions are bad, you also take all the responsibility as well. So keep that in mind. Government regulations in business. Well, there's good and bad about government regulations. There's a lot of conflict and agendas and priorities based upon the government, depending on who's in charge. Right now, we have a very pro-business government in Washington, with Donald Trump pushing for companies. However, his protections are more for big businesses. They're not really covering the mom and pops businesses, small businesses, like we would hope. However, it is better than it has been in the past. The government can regulate businesses for a lot of different reasons. Some of the regulations are simply there to protect the employees. There's actually a Department of Safety known as OSHA that is in charge of protecting the safety of employees at business. If you've ever wondered why it is the school has so many light bulbs that are burned out, it is because of OSHA. According to OSHA, we have to have 5 janitors in order to change a single light bulb. One janitor to go up the ladder, another janitor to hand up the new bulb and hand down to the old bulb. You have to have 2 other people hold the ladder, one on each set of legs, to make sure that the ladder doesn't fall. And you're sitting there going, well, that's 4 people, right? Well, there has to be a supervisor to make sure that the procedures are being done properly. So you're looking at 3 janitors and at least an administrator or a head janitor in order to change a single light bulb. You wonder why it is light bulbs don't get changed very often. Well, according to the rules, we don't have enough janitors at our school to change a single light bulb. We have to find extra people. We only have 4, and we need 5. So yeah, and they work different shifts. Sometimes those protection rights are a little insane. But at the same time, do you want employees falling off of a ladder because they're trying to go up it by themselves, or that they're carrying too many things, or dropping the bulbs, which are filled with a toxic gas? Or do you want them spilling chemicals, that kind of thing? So there's a lot of things out there to protect you from the company. A lot of companies will actually put you in harm's way in order to make money. And I have worked in jobs where they have been dangerous, and I've seen people killed on the job. There are reasons for those protections in order to not only protect them from safety reasons, but also personal rights to make sure that employees are hired fairly, that they're not fired for improper reasons and things like that. So super, super important. Sometimes the government will pass rules and laws in order to protect the environment. Uh, OSHA is for the employees, but you have the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, for the environment, and they come up with all sorts of new rules and regulations in order to keep us from polluting our waterways or contaminating our air or, all sorts of different things that can be harmful to the environment. These things are done in order to make our world better. Uh, Also, the government makes a lot of regulations to hold corporations accountable. This is so that they do not abuse their power and makes it possible for the business to not so much drive society, but society to drive business. Um, if you're not careful, businesses will wipe out a society in order to make a fast buck. There's a lot of movies and things out there where you have corrupt businesses doing things that basically bring around disaster. They could be environmental or so forth and so on. Just recognize that business sometimes is not always good. And because of that, we need to hold them accountable when they make mistakes. Government regulations, what are the benefits? Well, I don't have to worry about widespread dangers from business. Um, I know that there is government agencies to make sure that the products in which I buy are generally safe and that they have been inspected or given me some kind of certainty that I'm not giving my kid a product that is going to get them sick. Back in the 1990s, some stuffed animals were being shipped to the United States from China. And China had a garbage problem, and they had come up with an inventive way of getting rid of a lot of their garbage. They were taking plastics and other things from the garbage and then grinding them up into pellets and stuff, and then putting those pellets into the stuffing of stuffed animals, Beanie Babies, and other such things. These particular dolls and stuffed animals and stuff that were being given to children often had toxic chemicals because they were decomposing inside the stuffed animal and were releasing harmful toxins and gases, causing nervous condition problems in babies and possibly leading to cancer or other health issues. Because of this, the government stepped in and stopped the importation of those products and forced those companies in China from here, forced them to change the way in which they make their products. So now when I hand a stuffed animal to a child, I have a fairly good idea that the stuffed animal I'm giving to a baby is not going to be filled with toxic chemicals that are going to harm that child. I understand that the government regulations are making those products safer. A lot of government regulations bring in tax revenue and help our country make a lot of money, especially from imports. Imports pay a lot of taxes in order to get their products into our market, and that money is used to build schools, fund our military, build our border wall, so forth and so on. So there's benefits there to be had as well. Allowing consumers to shop with a serious amount of trust and safety. I don't walk through Walmart or places like that looking at products and thinking to myself that if I plug this up that it's going to catch on fire in my home. I know that when I see the UL sticker on the drop cord of a toaster, that product has been tested by the United States government and deemed safe. So when I plug it into the wall at my house, I'm not going to have to worry about my house catching on fire while I'm sleeping. The government removes threats from our market. As a child growing up, there was a wonderful game that I loved called lawn darts. Lawn darts were awesome, but they were extremely dangerous. And on the box it said from ages to 3 and up. And what it was a dart. It looked like a bomb, and it weighed about 2.5 to 4 pounds. And it had a handle on one end, and on the other end was a 4-inch long metal spike about as big around as your pinky. And what you would do is you would pick the bomb up by the handle, and you would swing it and throw it up into the air, and it would go up, and then it would come down, and then the metal spike would drive itself into the grass, and there would be a hula hoop about 20 feet away, and you would try to drop the bomb in the target into the hula hoop. And the problem with this is that a lot of people think of it like cornholing, except with darts, 5-pound darts with 4-inch spikes. And a lot of people would stand on one end throwing darts at a person standing beside the target on the other end, and sometimes the dart would hit the person on the other end if they weren't smart enough. Or if a cat or a dog saw it and thought to themselves, ooh, I'll catch that bomb. Sometimes Fluffy got a 4-inch spike driven through its head. A lot of cats and dogs got maimed and killed, and a lot of kids ended up with metal spikes sticking out of their foot or the side of their head. Because of this, these products were deemed dangerous. And in the early 1980s, the product was outlawed, pulled from the shelves. You cannot own lawn darts. But I will just say that for many years, me and my brother enjoyed a good game of lawn darts in the backyard when we were small kids. But I will say that Fluffy the cat didn't quite survive it every time. So, yeah. But today, those products are no longer on the market. Why? Because they were deemed dangerous. And I don't have to worry about giving that kind of product to my grandkids. Why? Because they won't allow them because they're too dangerous for kids to have. So the government does try to ensure public safety. Government regulation issues. Well, not all government regulations are good. Matter of fact, there are a lot of bad side effects. State, local, and federal government often impose lots of taxes, and because of these taxes, it can cause major issues for businesses to be able to navigate those tax issues. Also, sometimes you get double taxed, triple taxed, and basically because of taxes, you can make a business no longer profitable and the company has to quit. Security and Exchange Commission imposes financial reports and requirements. These can often lead companies to be less profitable or make it harder for them to get into public trading. So you can't actually get your company on the stock market without a lot of help from lawyers and stuff, which can be very, very expensive. So even though you have a great business and a great idea and you want to take it public, it may almost be impossible for you to get there just because of the regulations. Also, international businesses. You deal with all sorts of government regulations, not only with our country, but the country in which you are dealing with. There will be tariffs, import quotas, prohibitions. You will be able to import some things and not be able to import others. There will be tax issues, and there will be all sorts of stuff that may stop you from being able to actually make your business. I mean, like I said, you can have the best idea ever, and it can be completely dead in the water or made not profitable by government regulation. Regulations and warnings. Both businesses and consumers face lots of disadvantages when it comes to business regulations. Companies spend a lot abiding by these regulations, and they have to alter their operations in order to deal with all sorts of new regulations. I will say that Donald Trump came up with a good idea with the EPA. There were so many regulations in the EPA and in OSHA that basically he passed a rule that anytime they made a new regulation, they had to take out 2 old regulations to ensure that the new regulation was beneficial. I have seen regulations that were literally stupid. I worked at a sawmill and an OSHA guy came in and I spent an hour arguing with him about not putting a cover on the saw. Remember, the idea is to saw lumber, and if you can't get the log into the saw, you can't cut the lumber. And he wanted us to put a guard on it. Honestly, I have no idea what that guy was thinking, but we spent an hour trying to explain to him that you can't put a guard around the saw or you can't saw the lumber. You know, that was just a crazy regulation that guy was trying to enforce. Um, I've seen these type of things. Because it increased cost, recognize that a lot of times the taxes and fees and to guarantee safety are not always preferred by the customers. A lot of times we look at the stuff and it's not a big deal to us, yet the government has made it a bigger deal than it needed to be. And sometimes they can just gut a product to the point that it either isn't worth buying or it is so expensive now that you can't afford to buy it. So you can kill a company. Controls. Let's talk about price controls. Government regulations can often put price controls on a product. Why would we do this? Well, this is in order to protect the customer and to protect the manufacturer. Now you put a price ceiling to protect the customer. In other words, the price of the product will never go up too much in order to make sure that the product is affordable for the customer. Products that are my best example for this is milk. Milk actually has a price ceiling. You cannot charge more than $5 a gallon for milk. In other words, milk will always be less than $5 a gallon. And this has been this way since, well, the 1970s. Why? Well, who drinks a lot of milk? Children. We want to make sure that everybody, regardless of income, rich people and poor people, can afford to give their children milk. So milk cannot be more expensive than $5 a gallon. At the same time, the poor dairy farmer needs to be able to make a living. He cannot produce the milk for less than $2.50 a gallon. So you'll never see the price of milk fall below $2.50. So the price of milk is guaranteed to sell at least $2.50 a gallon. This makes it profitable for the farmer. He can feed his cows, pay his workers, and keep his business afloat because he knows that he will never have to sell his milk for less than this much. At the same time, the customer knows that milk will always be somewhere between $2.50 and $5 a gallon, so that they have no fears of being able to afford milk for their children. There are other products out there in which they do this. Remember, price ceilings are set for the protection of the customer. Price floors are set for the protection of the manufacturer. These are done in order to make sure that these things are done in a way that are beneficial for the customer and the country in general. Once again, these are usually put on staples. Another product which has ceilings and floors, oil. Gasoline in particular. The government regulates gasoline. It'll never fall, the price will never fall too far, or we cannot maintain the safety and the production and manufacturing of gasoline and oil. At the same time, they'll never let the price go too high because the government will interfere in that, because if they raise prices too high, then it affects prices in other products around the world. Just think of it this way: if the price of gas tripled or quadrupled, the price of everything, food, anything that's shipped in a truck or by railroad or whatever, will suddenly skyrocket. Why? Because the price to getting that product to you will go up, and they will transfer that cost onto the cost of the product. So the government intervenes in certain items. Milk for children, gas and oil, there are literally thousands of other products in which have price controls on them, but they're generally because they are for the good of the country. The price to remember, ceilings so that the protection of the consumer, and floors, protection for the manufacturer. Okay, so there you go. Shifting supplies and demands. I'm going to put this video up for you. You need to take a good look at it, but I want you to understand the shifting supply and demand. It's pretty simple. Anytime that you have a change in a product, the manufacturing or the demand or the location, or maybe another product that is related changes its price or demand for it somewhere nearby, may affect the equilibrium of your product. And you may need to determine whether or not, if you do something different or something happens, will you still be able to understand or be able to make a profit as a business owner. Learning how the shifting of supply and demand in the market plays a role in your ability to be a profitable business owner. So I'm going to put this one up for you guys to watch on your own, and that ends this particular unit. Making a business is the most important thing that you can do in your life. If you have dreams of being an entrepreneur and starting up your own business, a few tips I would just say, remember, it's all about choices. Remember, business is something that anybody can do, but make sure you're prepared for it. Make sure you understand the warnings, not just all the benefits of starting up your own business. Probably my favorite thing about business would have to be the profit share. Businesses that do profit sharing, I really like to work for those type of businesses. And I think that if you start up your own business and you consider profit share, um, you will find a happier workplace. So that's probably my biggest hint for any of you who are thinking of starting up your own business. All right, guys, we'll pick up with world economy, well, tomorrow. Talk to you later. Have a great day.